Welcome to Livery.
And we can talk about this too, but
yeah. Are we going?
Okay, we're on.
Hey, yeah. Larry, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Right.
No, so I would assume the turnaround time now is like clients expect it.
Turnaround time
on real
is
timelines, right?
The most important thing with photo and video, because it's not about who's better, it's about who's first now. Wow. So even though we bring the big guns, we bring the best content gathering machines, like the best Canon cameras, the best glass. Mm-hmm. We put ourselves in the best possible position to get the best things by either working for the series or somehow getting that edge on the competition.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if we sleep on the content and it goes stale, because everyone else just gets their content out first, even to the point where people are starting to get their content out mid-shoot, right? Yeah. While they're outside on the track, something just happens and they just post it or send it to the teams or drivers or sponsors.
Yeah.
We are battling all of that now.
Do you do that? Will you pass cards off during the event and have someone start?
So at big events, for example, like Formula Drift, that happened just last week here at Utah Motorsport Campus, we have dedicated editors sitting at the computer, one for photo and one for video.
Okay.
And as soon as session's over or as soon as there's a break or whatever, we have card runners that will just get the cards in, and then we just make sure that all the people that we're working for get content before they go to sleep, so they can post and they can just kind of get the hype going for the weekend.
How's that change the art of photography?
You know, that's a really good question. It's less and less times where I really truly get to focus on photography and focus on art. There's few times now, because I'm in front of camera so much, that I get to pick up the camera and just not really worry about filming myself doing the process.
Yeah.
I can just focus and just push to get the best pictures possible, make the best pictures. A couple come to mind. Luftgekühlt, right? The Porsche event. Mm-hmm. They're so photography focused and they're so aesthetic focused. It's the first car show that emphasized the placement of the car and the background, how it interacts with it, and leading lines and the time of day, like the sun goes through this window. And it's so crazy how much forethought and how much planning goes into every single car placement, that it's the best for car photography. And I really, really push myself physically and mentally to make the best pictures possible at those type of events.
If they're teeing it up for you, right?
Yes, they're teeing it up, and it's like you just can't fail, but you can succeed even more so if you put in the time and effort.
Yeah.
Meaning getting there as every single car is getting loaded in, and getting there before sunrise and before the first fan shows up, and also staying until the last car rolls out.
Yeah.
You know, just giving yourself more chances.
When I think it's kind of not a secret that you outwork a lot of people, right? Like that's a big piece of what you do and what you've done.
Yeah. And I say this a lot to a lot of podcasts. Anytime people ask me about this particular topic, I say that I know I'm pretty self-aware of my skill, and I'm self-aware of what I'm capable of. And I know, going back to spending more time on making these pictures, I need those extra chances, because all the time I'm sitting next to or standing next to or in the trenches with another photographer or videographer.
Right.
Even if we're in the same place, I look at his or her content and I'm like, how did you see that? I was literally just right next to you.
Yeah.
And they saw like a flower that they shot through or to add some color or something.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, I just didn't have that mental capacity to even think of it. Or the way that they set up their camera for slower shutter, or I don't know. There's so many techniques, right?
Of course,
and
yeah.
just that alone, I look at that skill and I just admire it.
Yeah.
But give me some time. Maybe I need 30 more minutes, an hour maybe,
Yeah.
in the same spot. And eventually I feel like I'll get something that I can be proud of.
And are you talking more about post-production or like in the moment?
I'm talking about in the moment. I'm talking about trackside, out on location. You know, you have the car, you have the subject, you have the background, or mid-race in the pits,
Yeah.
whatever scenario, or just a natural car culture moment, whether it be in Los Angeles, in Tokyo, in London, in wherever.
Yeah.
If there's a natural car culture moment and there's so many other people to capture this thing that's happening, it's, I just admire everyone else's skills, you know, and a lot of people ask me who inspires me. It's the other people that I'm shooting with.
Yeah.
Because I just love seeing what's being created. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's interesting. Just like you're saying, you can take one position and it'd be interesting to line up everyone's content. Not that one's better than the other, but just how photographers look at things differently, even though it's the same thing.
Well, and a lot of tracks kind of limit where you can be, right? Just from a safety perspective and anything else. So
yeah, and that's why I think about all the tracks I've been to, street courses, wherever, and you know, we lose places and sometimes we gain positions. This track is a good example here at Utah Motorsport Campus. It's almost like limitless in terms of where you can go. You know, you go on the rally cross jumps, or you can shoot through parts of the guardrail that's kind of opening up or whatever. Like there's just so many places. One of my favorite things to do, especially during Formula Drift weekend, is to not shoot in the limited access areas, but shoot in the public areas, because you're shooting through the crowd. There's no other Formula Drift, no other drifting place that's like this, in that people are laying out their picnic blankets, you know, they're enjoying their day on the grass on this hill, and it's just incredible, especially during sunset. The cars are coming around making plumes of clouds of smoke, right?
Yeah. And dirt. And
dirt. And dirt, lots of dirt. And it's just this great car culture moment that I just picture in my head right now.
Yeah.
And everybody's just having a good time. It's a family thing, you know, kids, young adults, all ages, enjoying this thing that we love so much.
Yeah.
When you're shooting a sporting event or a live event, how much time do you spend on composition and like, here's my spot, I got to find the shot? And how much of it is more of like a run and gun approach, right? Like, okay, I'm here, I got to make an executive decision in the next couple seconds as they come through, and then I'm moving.
I think a lot of it comes down to pre-planning in terms of, okay, so drifting is a good example, right? We plan it in a way where we have the best chance to get the best shot. So first session out, we don't shoot trackside because everyone's driving like crap. They have to get used to the track, the surface, the cars, everything. So what we do is we spend our time in the hot grid of them warming up their tires, getting their helmets on, gloves, you know, just the feeling of them getting ready. A lot of like close up on their eyes, eyelashes, them talking to their pit crew, sometimes, you know, working on the car, whatever, just everything other than the actual action. Once they're warmed up, then, okay, so we'll make a plan where we got to do this corner for this amount of time. And no matter what, we have to move because we have to hit every single corner inside, driver's left, driver's right, different focal lengths. The point is that it's almost like we just don't want to miss a shot, or at least we want to try our best to get the best chance to have all these different types of shots.
Mhm.
For me, it's so much about variety. You
Yeah.
know, it's very important to not just sit at one corner. I think it's probably banned now, but for many years at NHRA, even Top Fuel, these guys and girls will set up a lawn chair and sit in the chair and shoot the same shot
For the
of
whole
car launching. Yes.
Yeah.
The car launching, maybe pulling a wheelie,
Yeah.
doing a burnout, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And it just pains me so much to see that
Mhm.
Yeah.
because when you think about a quarter mile track,
Yeah.
you think it's so one dimensional. It's so simple, right? But I look at it and I'm like, why isn't anybody shooting behind the car? It looks so cool
Mhm.
when the tires expand and it's the initial flash of smoke. And
Yeah.
there's just so much, like the crew guys plugging their ears, and there's just so much texture and so much going on everywhere else, doing a 360 walk around, even going all the way down to finish line, which is very dangerous because that's where they crash a lot
where
of
stuff
times.
happens, yeah.
Going to where they open their parachute.
Uh-huh.
Like, how cool is that? It's violent. You know, this thing opening up and it's all of a sudden stopping this vehicle that's going over 300 miles per hour.
Mhm.
So cool.
So fast that it can't use brakes yet.
But then
Yeah.
these individuals are in a lawn chair. And it pains me, really.
So for you doing event, I mean, you've done the Mint, Le Mans, obviously Formula Drift. What type of events are the most physically taxing for you?
That's a really good question. Every certain type of event has different aspects that are physically taxing.
Mhm.
I would say Pikes Peak is definitely up there due to the altitude.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get altitude sickness because
Do you shoot a lot above the tree line, or
Yeah,
you kind
so-
of mix it up?
this is a joke. My guys love making fun of me because I refuse to shoot below tree line.
Okay.
Because I think it looks cool. It looks like Mars, looks very different compared to anywhere else in the world. It doesn't look like any other racetrack.
Right.
Or hill climb
Uh-huh.
for that matter. So when sometimes if it gets hailed out or snowed out or rained out
Yeah.
and I'm forced to shoot below
Uh-huh.
and I post the pictures, my guys are always like making comments like, this can't be Larry because he's below tree line, Tree line's like 12,500 feet,
Uh-huh.
right? So around 14 to 13.5, it's 40% less oxygen, give or take.
Yeah.
Right. So my body won't physically let me sleep at that altitude. I've tried.
Mhm.
I've tried to sleep up there because sometimes we have to, especially during race day, we have to wake up at 12:30 a.m.
Okay.
to beat the traffic because spectators and just everyone else trying to get up this mountain. I don't even know how many tens of thousands of people are going up this one road that is the race course.
Yeah.
We have to beat them.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes we have to go up there and I try to sleep, but my body physically won't let me. I'm gasping for air
Yeah.
while I'm asleep. And I wake up just out of breath.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like
so-
you almost feel nervous, right?
Yes.
When you're like low oxygen. It's
So
like-
people don't
yeah.
really understand how difficult it is. In fact, a lot of the videos that we publish of me up there, we just released like a almost 1 hour special from this year's race.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm slurring my words, and it's not because I just can't speak
Yeah.
properly.
Right. Short on sleep.
Yeah,
Low oxygen.
all of it.
Yeah.
So we try to get to bed at 5 p.m. every night. Everyone else is like, hey, let's go party. Let's go hang out. This mixer, this, that, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all already asleep.
Uh-huh.
Me and my whole team. Because we just want to make sure we get the best stuff possible
Yeah.
for history. Because we are the official photography team
Mm-hmm. Of Pikes Peak?
of Pikes Peak.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And I have been the official photographer since I think 2017 now.
Uh-huh.
First year I shot it was 2011, which is the last year of the dirt.
Yeah.
And I've shot every single race up until that, shot the 100th running, shot the 100th anniversary. And for me, it's such a big honor because I look back at the first pictures or even just pictures from 50 years ago and 30 years ago. And I'm creating those pictures that people in 50 years will look at.
Yeah.
Or even 100 years. This race we just finished the 102nd running.
Yeah.
Who knows how long this race is going to go on for? Probably a long time.
Right. There's a difference between a still image. You have one frame to tell a story. And I think because of that, like you're saying, they'll last in posterity potentially longer. Like it's an image hanging on a wall that might be relevant in 100 years. I think it's maybe harder to do that with video.
That's really interesting. I haven't even thought about that. One thing that I always say is that my pictures, because of how many I'm creating, millions, will last way longer than I'm around, and beyond.
Yeah.
And as long as, I guess my goal unintentionally was to capture the car culture of our generation. And I didn't really think about that with video. It's interesting because I hear a lot of people, especially photographers that have been doing it for a long time, they say that the still image is always going to be around no matter what. And yes, it makes sense. It's just something different about the still image.
Yeah. It tells a story in one frame.
Yeah.
So to do that, it has to be for something that people can look at and enjoy. It has to have all these different elements compressed into that one image, not 24 images every single second.
Well, one thing that was kind of brought up to me, one of the things I do is I sell prints, large format prints that I print myself. And
on your Canon
wide
format printer,
5-foot printer, which means I can print 5 foot by infinity or however long the roll is. I'm very proud of these things that I'm creating because obviously I'm creating the photo, spending the time to create these images, and then I'm doing the printing myself. It's in my hands. I'm signing it and I'm prepping the image. I'm packaging it. To me, it's so intimate, right? And this one individual who purchased a print told me that he bought this thing for $125 and he put it in his hallway. And it's of Hertz Torque Stallion, FDRX7. And he looks at it and he's like, listen, I wake up every single day and I look at this image. It's the first thing I see when I walk out of my bedroom. And it inspires him. And maybe one day he'll be able to build something like that, and it makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It's just so cool that you could have a piece of this thing, and I made it with love.
Yeah. Is that what you intended when you got into photography, or is it more just kind of a cool thing to do? And
no, I can't tell you how many years I really struggled to just make these pictures for myself.
What do you mean?
Well, because my intention was never to make money from this and to do this as a career. That was a goal that eventually I knew that I was able to hit.
Yeah.
But initially I was just doing other things, odd jobs, and working really hard to just afford to go to these places to make these pictures. So first time going to Japan, first time going to Europe, first time going to all these races and drift events all over the US. That was on my own dime. That was on my own dime. I would do whatever it took. Come hell or high water, I would try to be there. Sleeping on floors, helping race teams trailer their cars there. Whatever I needed to do. Because at one point, I just couldn't even afford an airplane ticket to go to these events, especially if you're going from West Coast to East Coast. I live in Los Angeles. I legitimately would help these individuals trailer their cars 4 or 5 days across the country just to be able to photograph this race.
To get the vest.
Yeah. And
Do you keep anything from like that era? Do you have any keepsakes? Like I was just thinking vests or old camera bodies.
I
or
keep
anything?
some important vests.
Okay.
Like my first WRC vest I kept, and
Cool.
little things like that. But I keep every single lanyard and pass. And I haven't weighed it in a while, but it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's, I think, over 20 pounds of lanyards.
Of just lanyards.
That's crazy.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are your you have kids, right?
Yes, I have two
You have two kids.
Yeah.
Are they into showing interest in photography and cars? Are they?
It's funny. My son's 7, and he's just getting into cars, and
Okay.
he's so spoiled, I guess. Because I have a Hot Wheels. Well, I have 2 Hot Wheels now, and I
Yeah.
have a lot of toys and pins and stuff made of my cars.
Yeah.
And he just, it's just, he feels like it's normal.
Yeah. He hasn't put it together
Yeah,
yet.
like, doesn't your dad have a Hot Wheel? And
Right.
and he'll like pull up on his iPad he plays all these games on Roadblocks or all these other games
Yeah.
that feature real cars. And he's like, which one of these do you have? And he's like, I know you have this one. And he's like pointing at it, R32 or something,
Yeah.
And I'm just so blown away that at 7 years old, it could get that detailed. Because for me, I remember even when I was in middle school, like 11, 12, 13 years old,
Mhm.
I was still having problems identifying what manufacturer is what car.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I don't know. It just didn't click yet.
Yeah.
I knew certain cars, but I looked at my friends and they're like, oh, that's a whatever, and that's a Integra Type R or this, that.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you know?
Yeah.
How can you recognize that?
Mhm.
And
That's my wife still. Yeah.
some
that
people
way-
are colorblind. And
Car
listen,
blindness.
you know what's really funny? I always have to bring up this story, or I don't know if I've even told this story, but my buddy told me in confidence that he had this R35 GTR, black one, and his wife wasn't really into cars, and I'm sure his wife is like your wife.
Yeah.
Anyways, he one day found a very, very rare Nismo 380 RS, right? Only sold in Japan, I think. It's basically the homologated Super Taikyu 350Z 3.8 liter. Before the 370Z, they only made like 300, I think, just so they could race it in Super Taikyu.
Yeah.
He bought the car, not telling his wife.
It was
And-
the same color as the car you already had,
Same
right?
color. And then he took his wife to dinner. And she did not notice.
Didn't notice that it was a completely different.
car. And he has
Oh, that's
both.
amazing.
So he has both still.
my wife's definitely gotten better, but there have been times where it's like, at one point we owned a white truck, and it was like, if there was any other white truck in the parking lot, it was kind of a mixed bag of which one she'd walk up to. Like, so that was, yeah. She has gotten better in her defense, but yeah, there does seem to be people that are like that language just never clicks, right? The manufacturer is just obscure and the model and, not us car nerds, but
Yeah. I was dating a girl and we would play this game where it's like, how much do you think that car is worth? And we would drive by like one of the GT86s and she'd be like, 100,000? And you'd be like, nope, but it looks sharp. Like it was almost a nice barometer. And then you'd have a GTR and she'd be like, I don't know, like 25. Like, I don't, like the looks of a car versus like the Gen 2
value.
Supras. I mean, those things are command such a premium now. Is it Gen 2?
Mark IV.
Mark IV Supras. And she would be like, why? It just looks old. And you're like,
The joke when I'm driving my R32 around town is like, get that ugly old Nissan Sentra out of the way.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up a quote that you made about you from 7 years ago. I want to ask you about it. Why can't I be the Asian Jay Leno, referencing his garage? So what is your dream Asian Jay Leno garage? Like, money's no object. Just what are your collector cars that you want to walk out and drink coffee staring at every morning?
That's tough. I mean, I think I'm super realistic, so I don't know if I could. Obviously, there's just so many cars that I could just say, "Oh, I want this car. I want this car. I want this car." Since then, I've gotten more realistic in terms of knowing what I potentially could eventually have.
Yeah.
And I think my realistic goal is to just start banging away at the 90s JDM Legends.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
With that said, I think I met the actual Asian Jay Leno. Just a couple months ago, I went to Malaysia and I met this individual who made his wealth in the tech industry out there. Man, this guy has some serious
a collection.
Does he have the same spectrum, like breadth of obscurity that Jay has?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
It's incredible. He has just so many different cars, and we did end up shooting capturing car culture Hagerty episode on that, and that's something that we're working on right now. We're just going through the edit, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. But yeah, this guy, super passionate, and he's been collecting cars for 30 years. He's been racing as well. He's raced at the Macau Grand Prix, and he's raced a lot in his life and with his sons. But incredible collection. I cannot wait to show everybody the video. But unknowingly, I have shot a couple of his cars. His cars were in Singapore, and for those of you guys who don't know, Singapore is a free port. And if you bring in a car, let's say a Bugatti, I don't even know what's the
Chiron,
crazier than Chiron. Well, but
I know you're
we
talking
can Google
yes.
it.
Anyways,
Starts with a V.
No, you're thinking the Veyron.
No.
But the Chiron was.
so
after
anyways,
the-
I think he has 4, right? So he has a Chiron, Veyron, and yeah, even more Devo.
Right.
Yeah, so he has a Devo. I was like, I've never seen a Devo in my life, and it was in a bonded warehouse port where you bring in it, you buy it, you don't have to pay tax on it because it's essentially like trade free, right?
Okay.
So this guy, he hasn't even taken delivery of it because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And I was I sneak a couple of pictures of it because I think at the time I was unable to shoot it. I didn't have the permission to shoot it, but we were there to shoot one of the Ital design GTR 50s. And it was in Iron Man colors. It was also at the bonded warehouse. I think getting the registration all through and the taxes, because the taxes in Singapore, it's like, I don't even know how it's crazy. It's like 400%, right? Or something insane on the car. So unknowingly, I photographed this guy's couple of cars in his collection. And then I finally met him, and blew me away.
Did you know exactly what you were walking into, or were there surprises in the garage?
That's the thing that's really the beauty of what I've kind of set myself up for, especially in the past 3 years, because we're on our 3rd season of Capturing Car Culture with Hagerty. And this year we have 26 episodes, and that's essentially one every 2 weeks. One just launched today that we shot in Thailand. So it's gotten to the point where I'm telling these stories and other individuals are reaching out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to tell this story. And part of it is because print magazines don't exist anymore, really. So what is that goal? What is the way to tell the story? Well, it's through video, honestly. And maybe stills and blogs and things to a certain degree. But I'm still lucky in that I get to shoot stills. The stills end up in the video. And of course, we shoot a lot of B-roll and I got to tell the story. So that blew me away because, our local contact in Malaysia, he's like, hey, you got to meet this guy. He's basically like every car guy's uncle. So like, come meet this uncle. You know, it's
Okay.
like this term of endearment for like somebody that kind of takes care of everybody, you know? So just went there, and I drove his 1886 Benz
Wow.
clone or whatever, the world's first car.
Yeah.
And single piston. It has a tillet, I think, for a steering wheel.
Yeah.
3-wheel. And
How does it break?
I drove that.
Is it like a handbrake? Are there pedals?
It was a handbrake. There's no pedals.
God.
I drove this on the streets in Malaysia.
How terrified
holding up
were you?
traffic. It was fun. You know, I also drove a diesel Lamborghini tractor on the streets.
Wow.
Yeah.
that's
So
fun.
he has the Porsche tractors and Lamborghini tractors. Man, this guy. Well, wait till you guys see the episode. It's really good. I'm very proud of it.
How was
That's awesome.
How did it happen going from you were a photographer strictly behind the camera to now being in front of the camera? Was that something that you anticipated and wanted, or was it just an organic thing?
Honestly, I never expected to be in front of camera ever. I'm a lot more comfortable being behind camera. I consider myself pretty introverted. I'm pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Especially growing up, I was so quiet. You know, everybody really got on my case, including at school, at home, for being too quiet and just keeping to myself. I just forced myself to be more personable, to make more friends, to make more connections, because honestly, that's it in this industry.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that this world and this community is so accepting and so fun to work with. And it's the best community, really.
Mhm.
And they've really, it's really opened up so many opportunities for me being in front of camera. I do have to say Hoonigan was a big driving factor in that.
Yeah.
I first started appearing in their videos, and I wouldn't say I bought myself into them, but I kind of bought myself into them. At one point, when they were really taking off, I just started showing up more because I was always around that community, right? Because I've been shooting for ChemBlock since Gymkhana 4, since 2011. And I've shot pretty much every one of the major projects since then, unless there was some crazy thing that was going on where I couldn't make it. And that naturally just had me around. And they're like, hey, Larry, you should be on camera too. Or you should come join in on this thing, or do this foot race, or do this thing. And then eventually I had my own show on their channel, which was like almost like a variety show, or it was like a catch-all, right? So they would kind of check in with me. Oh, what's Larry shooting this week? Or and I'm, showing what I'm doing at King of the Hammers, or Baja 1000, or Pikes Peak, or this 24-hour race, or Le Mans, or this, that, and the other. And eventually I kind of started owning that show, which was a Friday release show, and they had daily shows. So it was like a way to close out the week. And then eventually I started taking over their other channel, which was the bonus channel, which was another catch-all for just random stuff like, somebody brought this crazy car and they're just doing burnouts outside. Let's film it.
Yeah.
And then eventually pretty much every episode was me out shooting, showing people cool cars, telling cool stories. And then eventually I had my own channel on the network, which was the Hoonigan Autofocus channel, right? Just focusing on automobiles. And then when it sold, I purchased the channel. And so now I have my own YouTube channel, which is just the Larry Chen channel. And then I also contributed to Hagerty, which has 3.2 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Just that transition from, I'm behind the scenes making things to highlight other people, to being the person.
Yeah. And I'm coming on 21 years of shooting cars. So a lot of people ask me, a lot of individuals, including a lot of really talented photographers here in the Utah region, they ask me like, oh, what's the quick way? There's no quick way.
Right.
Shoot for 21 years and then,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about what you were talking about earlier you see this all the time with a lot of people. One, it's like, what are the tools you use, which is almost irrelevant, right? It's really the guy behind the camera. It's not the camera or the lens or the software. But the other big thing that stood out was when you were talking about how you were schlepping cars for teams. It had nothing to do with photography, just to be there, right? And just to like put the work in. And so many people seem to want to, they have no experience. They're still trying to get like feet under them, and they want you to pay them full rate. And they, and it's like, look, all of us, it just seems like it's a recipe for success. All these guys that I know personally, and it's like everyone that's been successful has had that mentality. Like, go out, hustle, stop asking like where the money's coming from. Stop asking like, is this, what's in it for me? And it's more about just be free with your time with others, be gracious. And then it comes back 100-fold, because those are the guys who show up. They're the ones that are loyal. They're the ones that are there for the right reasons.
Yeah. The right reasons is a big one, right? So for me, it's passion first, right? For me, it's a love for cars, love for driving first. I started performance driving, doing autocross, stuff like that before I started seriously shooting. But I quickly realized that I'm a much better photographer than I am a driver. So for me to stay relevant and be around cars, I kept taking pictures.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That seems to be a common thread, through all of it.
In fact, I quit driving altogether, performance driving, to focus on photography. And now you've witnessed in person that I've taken upon myself to pick it back up after all these years, because it's the initial reason why I fell in love with cars to begin with. And one thing I've been saying a lot in the past couple of years, especially this year, because I got my competition license this year, is that I was just tired of watching other people have fun. I want to have fun myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Did that affect your photography at all? Like getting in the car, learning how to drift, did that give you a different perspective that you maybe took into the lens?
Oh my God. I cannot tell you how much more respect I have for drifters and racers.
Yeah.
After doing this myself in the lowest level, just getting into it and knowing what it's like. Because for the longest time, I thought to myself, I kind of know what it would be like to be drifting and be sideways and hanging out.
Yeah.
We've
all done it on a wet road.
We've all done it all the, whatever. Especially when I was autocrossing all those years ago, like, oh, this is fun, but it's slower.
Yeah.
The rear end would kick out for this one corner. And I was thinking like, oh, what would it be like if I just kept it and, caught it and just kept drifting. So then when I did end up buying my own drift car, and building it out, and I started drifting this 350Z as a complete stock vehicle, I've been watching it so much, like it felt normal, felt right. When I did get in that pocket and when I was sideways and I stayed sideways, and I was thinking, oh man, this is exactly what I was picturing it would be like.
You understand it.
Yeah. But with that said, since I've been getting behind the wheel so much, I look at the best, the top, not 1%, but like 0.1%.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I'm photographing doing everything. Like, for example, this past weekend, I was at Coda, watching WEC, WEC, 6-hour endurance race, Toyota and Ferrari, 6 hours of racing, finished 1.8 seconds apart.
Isn't it crazy with the endurance races? When it comes down to that, everything that happens, and it comes down to a last lap battle.
I can you tell that to a layman, or you tell that to somebody who doesn't know how to drive, or maybe is a fan, but they've never been in that position. They don't appreciate it as much as honestly we do. Yeah. Really. And then the drifting side. oh my God, could you imagine? Like, just, you have to just think about what they're doing. It's insane.
Here's a question. You spent a large number of years photographing and being around the best people at angle, at drifting.
Mhm.
When you got in the car for the first time, did you expect to just kind of throw it in and have full opposite lock? Or did you have a reasonable expectation?
So the thing is, it's not about, like, the skill, from what I can tell from the outside, it's not about them getting sideways and keeping it sideways. It's about the commitment that they have
Mhm.
and the fine edge, the fine line. It's the thinnest air, like line of error, margin of error,
Margin of error.
of completely wrecking your car and getting a 100-point run.
Mhm.
It's crazy how much they're on that margin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really impresses me. When I watch from the outside now, I'm just so blown away, more so than ever before, because now, or when I look at all the fans, I look at them and I'm thinking, man, I wonder if they have any idea how hard this is. It's
Yeah.
so hard.
When someone
there's
does
no way.
something-
I mean, some do, but there's
Yeah.
no way the majority don't. And you see it in grip racing as well, where especially like sim guys, like you spend all this time on the sim, you've never had time behind the wheel of a real car, and then you get that opportunity, and you see it a lot where they're not used to feeling real G forces. They're not used to sweating.
Having real consequences.
real consequent fear going into the brake zone, right? Or they're just exhausted after 3 laps, right? Or, what happens if this guy hits me? Or anyways, on and on and on, where it's all perspective. It's all like having context of what's happening. And you see the same thing with hill climb and rally. And I mean, any of these disciplines, they're just on the ragged edge. And like you said, if they're a second apart at the end of a 6-hour race, what does that actually mean? That means that, like, not only were the cars that close in terms of like BOP and, grip and aero, and I mean, the billion variables that could affect car performance, but also every one of their drivers was that consistent that it came down to that, like, which means they had a variation and a delta of a 1/10 in their whole stint.
Probably less, yeah.
Right? Like, I mean,
And then what about the crew guys?
Yeah.
yeah.
Changing
The
tires,
whole team,
just-
yeah.
Mhm.
Everything.
Well, the setup, I mean, you can line up a bunch. I mean, that's spec racing to the T. The setup, the things that are adjustable, there's so many different variables to get it right, to get it wrong. It's such fine margins, but then the track is evolving. So you're only going to be perfect for that one little lap, maybe.
And then let's talk about the fact that they have to battle traffic the whole time.
Right? Multi-class racing.
The
Yeah.
fastest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are they getting through traffic equally?
Uh-huh.
Right? Like by the end
And
of
it
6
nets
hours.
out to 1.6 seconds
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Sometimes, not so much with endurance racing, but I think with drifting, find it with like freestyle motocross, like when people are so dialed and so good at it, it's hard to appreciate as a fan because you see them just be quiet, in their motions. The car looks settled. It looks so automatic. It's almost easier to appreciate someone that's all over the place, that is putting a lot more input in, that makes it look more sketchy.
I would,
You know what I mean?
I would say from like like the different disciplines, it feels like grip racing is the least consumable for most people in terms of like understanding what's happening. Like they can see a drift car and go,
Right.
damn, like I can't even imagine having the car that sideways and controlling it. Or they watch rally and they watch the trees doing this and they're like, that looks dangerous.
Good point.
But then they watch, LMP1 cars, GTP cars, and they're like, I don't know, looks easy.
Maybe it doesn't translate unless you're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, also endurance racing specifically, like you're not going to keep an audience's attention span for that entire event unless they are real diehards.
That's why, honestly, it's such a treat when people do get to ride in some of these cars. Like, people don't understand how good the brakes are on.
I wish people
GT3
could feel the
car.
brakes.
Yeah.
Like
GT3 car, sitting passenger, you know, I don't care how tight you tight those harnesses.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're sitting passenger, your head is going to be, you know, hurting.
You're like, there's no way these harnesses will flex. And then you get in the car and they're like,
Yeah. There's so much of a gap behind you.
Yeah.
You move so forward.
So you've moved into racing.
Yeah.
And what are your aspirations with?
I'm at this point where I'm just a tourist still.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying different disciplines. I'm trying different cars because I don't know what really to sink my teeth into.
Yeah.
It's still a learning experience for me. You know, that's why this weekend I'm here. I'm taking the opportunity to drive NASA Nationals because I don't know when this opportunity will come again.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is because I'm so busy and I have so few weekends and I have so little time to drive.
Yeah.
I always have to make the most of the time that I have, always. So, for example, when I go out to drift, I always bring at least 20 tires with me because I want to go through all those 20 tires. And I have gone through 20 tires in one day in my 350Z because I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to get behind the wheel. Yeah, I want to drift until I can't move my arms anymore.
Sounds like a similar mentality to your shooting. Like you just have to get the most out of it when you have it there.
Yeah, because I am now at that age where I just realized that I have to make the most of the time that I have because I want to do more. I want to do as much as I can. You know, there's so many other places I want to go to. I've been able to travel to almost, I think, 50 countries on other people's dimes, shooting cars and car culture. And I want it to be more than that.
What are your bucket list events, locations?
There's so many. You know, I want to shoot. Monaco is a good one. I was offered that this year.
The
and
F1 or the historic?
Okay. Yes, both. Either or.
Yeah.
But I was busy shooting other things. I want to shoot Bathurst 12-hour. That would be so
that'd
cool.
Be rad, yeah.
What about Isle of Man? Is that a little bit too heavy for you? Seriously, I'm a huge fan of it. I don't know that I go in person. Just knowing
it's
what
tough.
the odds are.
You know, it's something. The danger and death aspect is something that we have to deal with. Unfortunately, it is inherently dangerous. It is motorsport, you know, and it's something that, unfortunately, I have a lot of photos of people that have passed while they're racing. You know, it's just something that's unavoidable. On Pikes Peak, you know, just sports car racing, whatever, hill climb, whatever. Knock on wood, you know, luckily drifting is pretty safe.
Yeah.
We haven't had any really bad incidents. But Isle of Man is a tough one. Motorcycle racing is very interesting to me. I miss it so much on Pikes Peak. I really wish it would one day come back, but I understand it's just so dangerous.
Absolutely.
When you're on the ragged edge on a motorcycle, there's just there's no.
You can't dump any tire. You can't do anything.
If you get a little sideways in a car, big deal. You could potentially bring it back. Good chance.
Yeah.
Motorcycle, my goodness.
Yeah. I'm with you. The Isle of Man TT is fascinating to me, but I don't know that I'm comfortable being a spectator with that level of risk, just because, you know, I want to go and have fun. And part of motorsport is the fact that it is a little bit extreme and there is some danger, and that's very cool. And I love the history of it. You know, these dudes and women that were absolute cowboys, and we've evolved from that. And going to witness in person something like the Isle of Man would be fascinating, but I don't know that I would be a fan of Formula One. If I was around in the 1970s, I think I would have a conflict of like, hey, you know, we're supporting this thing that is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And in this modern day, I'm surprised. I'm honestly that it's still around. Like you would think that it would have been like, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is different places from what I've been able to experience now over, you know, almost 21 years. Is that just different places have different outlooks on
Yeah, for
live.
sure.
on-
Yeah.
Like good example
point.
is Baja 1000.
Yeah.
That race will never happen anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I love Oh, yes.
It's on the public roads.
Yes. With like handshake deals as well. Like they're not pulling permits for everything.
Oh my God. The cops are like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
Oh, I love
It's
it.
on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Like I'm mapping myself to go to one place and it's like gives you a warning. This route goes through the Baja 1000 race course. I'm like, okay.
I love the clips. They're terrifying. But when you have like one of the trophy trucks
Yeah.
blowing past like a beat up 1989 F-150 going the other way with people in the back, you're just like,
dude.
The best is so I've shot the race so many years. You know, I used to chase it from a helicopter every single year,
cool.
and I quit
okay.
flying after Kobe died. RIP. And it's just so much risk, and I've almost had 2 big incidents in a helicopter in Baja because it's just so dangerous.
Yeah.
We've gotten hit by rocks from the trucks
Wow.
too, like hitting
That's
the
gnarly.
windshield of the helicopter.
And the choppers are,
They'll shoot the rocks up 100, 200 feet.
Yeah.
You
But you
know,
guys
like-
are below 200 feet a lot of the time when
A
you're
lot
filming
of
it.
times,
Yeah.
yeah. We're so close sometimes that I can read their speedometer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they,
Through your lens.
teams will use the
No,
choppers to
just
clear,
really naked eye.
Wow.
they'll use the choppers to clear cattle and stuff, right? Like they'll go in
Well,
front and,
okay, so I've been in our filming helicopter where we helped somebody just clear dust because they got stuck or they got
swirl or
lost
whatever.
in somebody else's dust.
okay.
And it was getting to the point where it's dangerous because guys in the middle of the course and other cars are coming
hmm
and we just hover over them just to clear the dust so they could see.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just it is legitimately the Wild West. I've stayed in a house where we land in the middle of the house, like they have like a villa, and I would peer out of the front gate, and that's the race course. They're going 10-10s full sideways.
Yeah.
As soon as you step out, could you imagine somebody just coming out to get their mail?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like
Water the lawn.
a guy coming out 100-mile-an-hour trophy truck just coming by.
Sideways.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I've been a fan of racing, for a long time, for most of my life. And, I was aware of obviously the Baja 1000, but I was down there working. I do corporate events, and I was working with Toyota, and they had, do you know who Ryan Millen is? He was an
Of
old,
course.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So Ryan was down there and he and I had probably a 2-hour conversation, and all the stuff that we're talking about now that I think is gnarly, but I'm aware of, I was unaware of, and hearing it for the first time and was just blown away at the things that he was telling me that now, they're standard for the race, but it's just it's such a throwback.
It's crazy. I mean, there's those videos every single year of the locals who hide like in between the jumps, or like
Or
if
they
it was a
build their
double
own
jump.
little-
Oh, yeah.
No, if it was a double jump, they'll be in the middle, so the vehicles can catch air over them, and it's like fun for them. And
Until a class 11 comes along and just flops down.
well, that's the thing is sometimes I saw a video, I think it was from last year, where the guy peered his head over and the trophy truck's like, oh, and then just goes around.
Oh,
And then the guy gets
man.
upset.
Oh,
He's like, what the hell? Like, I was expecting
that
this
almost-
cool show of
Dude,
just a
that
guy's
is-
drive shaft.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
gnarly.
man.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. How do you scout out shooting locations when you're doing like the Baja 1000, one of those?
So off-road events in particular, like the Men 400,
Yeah.
Vegas to Reno, King of the Hammers,
Mhm.
all desert racing. It's all about the location. All about the location. If you can find the good location that has the good silt or the good jump or the good action,
Mhm.
then you will have a better chance to get better photos or video or whatever. If you just rush into it,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. And part of it is because, especially something like the Baja 1000, if it's a point-to-point race,
Mhm.
going from starting in Ensenada, going down to La Paz,
Yeah.
you will only see your team or your vehicle that you're following one time.
Yeah.
Just one time. And you got to make it count. And sometimes they're stuck in the dust, or sometimes they're broken down, or it could be so many. Or sometimes, because the race course is not defined, they could just go around you.
You're just sitting here.
Yeah. That happens all the time. So it's
man.
about finding, like, let's say a pinch point.
Yeah.
That, okay, they're definitely going through here,
Got it.
or whatever. It's like some kind of marker that they have to hit. They have to be on this. Yeah. It's just, there's just so many variables, and it's very difficult to photograph.
How far ahead of the race do you go down if your schedule's open? I mean, you go.
So this past year was the first time ever where I shot the start of the race, because in the 50-year history, they've never run it backwards. And so this past year, they ran it backwards from La Paz up to Ensenada.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
So then what we had to do, I went to La Paz to shoot the opening ceremony, the contingency tech, and all the fanfare and the ceremonial start and all that. Then I got on a commercial plane from Cabo to Tijuana, where my assistant was waiting for me. I jumped in my car, and he drove me as fast as he could to Ensenada, and I caught the finish.
Wow.
Like,
That's so cool.
It's
Gnarly.
so crazy that I've never done that before.
How much margin did you have, time wise?
So this past year, we were following the Ford team.
Okay.
And it could have been close.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been close to the point where if they were going at pace and they didn't have any incidents, which has happened before.
That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the Ford team, because it's something that they're super passionate about.
Yeah. And this was the trophy truck you were following?
No, it was,
Class.
they're always doing some crazy experimental thing.
Okay.
And then I think this year was a Raptor R, and I think a Bronco Raptor, I think.
That makes sense.
But anyways, it was so close that we had some backups. Like we told a bunch of our friends that we're going to be at the finish line to make sure if they come through that they could get it for us. And I guess unlucky for them, but lucky for us, they had some incidents where it was raining like crazy, and a bunch of parts broke. And so they were behind, and we ended up staying, I think, till like 2 a.m. or something to get them to finish.
Yeah.
What's crazy to me is, like, that race, if you want to finish, you'll take maybe 36 hours, 40 hours to finish. And I think there was one year where I shot the race, champagne, my guys finished, went home, celebrated Thanksgiving, and I look at the tracker for whatever reason, and people are still driving.
Yeah.
Many days afterwards, trying to finish the race.
The class 11 buggies are like a whole
goodness.
different level of
It's
cool.
insane.
Yeah. The fact that I think they're on leaf springs. I don't think they're allowed to put.
They're just dragging the underside of the car everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, they're just dragging the whole way.
Would you do that? What class would you race in if you did an off-road race?
I would feel comfortable to drive. I don't know if I would drive class 11. I don't think my spine would be able to take it.
There's the challenge cars.
I think I would feel comfortable doing maybe even a UTV. What's crazy to me is something like the Baja 1000. You don't need any licensing or anything. If you just buy a trophy truck or spec trophy
you can
truck,
just show up.
You could just show up, and people do that all the time. And legitimately, so many times you can see in history how many times they flip trophy trucks first turn. First turn. Because they have no idea what it's like to be. They're like excited, It's so easy to flip those things.
How many of those people do you think are bragging that they raced in the Baja 1000 later? I'm sure they are. Like, I've raced in it. Had a mechanical issue first turn. Got unlucky.
That is gnarly.
Flipped upside.
There's got to be a registration fee though, or like
registration fee.
Like
I mean, you
$4,000.
don't win anything.
Yeah,
right. There's no purse or anything. It's just insane. I
the
love
Wild
it
West.
so much.
Yeah.
It's very special, and like I said, It's not going to happen in mainland Mexico.
Mm-mm.
It's just
Well, it's kind of the core of motorsport, right? It's just Wild West, like bring what you got and let's go.
Well, it's beyond grassroots because, like you were saying, they don't shut the roads down. If the local community doesn't buy in, it doesn't happen. Right? Like the community has to be supportive of it because they're on so many areas where it's privately owned land or public roads, and the cops could pull everyone over.
Yeah.
They'd be fully in the right to do so.
that's the problem, right? That's, I think, one of the main reasons why Stage Rally and WRC is unable to be successful really here in
North
the
America.
US.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it's so hard to shut down private and public roads. Most of the stage rallies that I've shot here in the US were on public or on private roads, private land.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it's like some whatever logging company owns the entire place.
Tracked. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you transit from one logging company place to another, or this, that, another, or special stage here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about with coal, how it's like makes rallying in the United States very inaccessible because there's also the expense involved in stage racing where one stage is here, the other one's over here. It's particularly point to point where you have so much more infrastructure on your team than, a couple of loops here and there.
But I think your point's correct about it's almost like doing a street race, like a street circuit, and like closing down the whole freeway because we're going to do a stage race. Like that's hard to do in the United States. Whereas, in other places they just send it.
And honestly, street races like Long Beach Grand Prix, there's Chicago now,
Nashville, and
Detroit, Nashville.
Yeah. My favorite kind of racing. My favorite.
Oh yeah,
absolute favorite.
I love Long Beach.
The coolest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
so cool. Everybody asks me, "Well, what's your favorite Formula Drift place to shoot?" This, that, and other. I've shot Formula Drift all over the world.
Yeah,
in Japan, in Australia, in Southeast Asia. I've shot a lot of drifting in Europe. Favorite place, still Long Beach, because it's on the streets. And in past years, they let me use my camera car, my Toyota Supra, to film the vehicles at speed, them doing their thing. And I'm just behind in my camera car filming.
Yeah,
and there's just no other place in the world like it. It's so beautiful. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do they drift at Macau?
No. I got invited to go to this year's.
Yeah.
And I've been one time and I thoroughly enjoyed shooting it. Unfortunately, that year that I went, there was 2 deaths that year.
Wow.
It's so dangerous.
It's so narrow.
Dangerous. Yeah. I mean, how much of the course is permanent yellow, right?
Yeah.
And then also it's the tightest corner in all of motorsport. Right? Sometimes these formula cars have to do 3-point turns or get pushed back, whatever,
Tighter
just to
than
make it.
the hairpin at Long Beach, like onto the front straight?
Yes.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Because that one's pretty gnarly too.
So yes, but this section of track is permanent yellow. You're not allowed to pass.
You're not allowed to pass.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh
Yeah.
wow,
Crazy.
Yes. It's so tight.
Well, on very little of the track, you can even go 3 wide. I mean, it's
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
they try.
I'm sure you guys saw that Formula 3 launch.
Yes.
Yes, the first corner, turn 1.
Yep.
I thought to myself, I was in that building not that long ago.
Wow.
I was in that media hut.
That's crazy.
And the Formula 3 car just launched into it.
Well,
Yeah.
and I don't even know why I was noticing this, but the last Macau race, whatever GT3 one we were watching, I didn't notice before, but they have like cranes set up everywhere.
Every corner.
Because they can't get trucks in there or whatever.
Yeah,
so they just
right.
like go in, pick them up.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. That's another race that I feel like, where else could it exist?
Yeah.
That's like saying, hey, let's do a street race in New York.
Yeah.
Through Times Square.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm amazed Long Beach still goes.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, that's an amazing race.
Yeah, it brings so much revenue to the area. It's I don't even know if you can calculate it.
I'm surprised the Flowers are still alive.
They must get
They
replanted
They
after it.
replane it.
Well, particularly when they were doing, I don't know if they're still doing stadium super trucks.
Yeah.
Like those things.
man.
Actually, they were respectful of the fountain, but Yeah, watching those go
The
around
fountain
there.
line. Have you driven Long Beach?
Just on the sim, not in real life. No.
Oh, wouldn't it be so cool? My thing that I say every single year when we go for Formula Drift, because I've had a chance to drive at least part of the course, I'm going to put it out there in the universe that next year I'm going to drive the full course instead of pulling in and then meet them back where they start, because I'm legitimately doing it because I'm running into an issue where I'm picking up too many marbles when I go in and I come back out, and first turn, it's dangerous for me. So I was going to pitch, since the course is closed anyways, let me just go around. I actually want to do that.
That'd be amazing. Yeah.
But I was thinking, how cool would it be just to leave it open for one more day? And it's like a very expensive track day, like $1,000 or $1,500. You get to drive Long Beach course.
It's a great.
How cool would that be?
That'd be a great point. Yeah,
but Bathurst is the same way though, isn't it? Like I think it's only the Bathurst the 12-hour and whatever the other one is, but it's like half the track is a track and half of it's public roads, just like Le Mans.
Le Mans, yeah.
Right, where it's similar thing where like for Le Mans, like, hey, just like let's have a private day like afterwards.
Why not? I think that's a phenomenal idea.
That would be so cool.
And I would imagine, do you know how long it is before they remove the infrastructure? It's got to be like a couple days, right?
Here's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Is they build it like 3 months in advance.
Okay.
I kid you not. It's so early.
Yeah.
And I started shooting that race in 2004. And back then, it was a 4-day race. So it was like Thursday would be practice. And then
what
Friday,
race?
Saturday,
IndyCar?
Sunday. No, yeah.
Okay.
They would
got it.
practice on Thursday. So now, I'm assuming probably to save money or whatever,
Yeah.
they would only close up for 3 days.
Okay.
So Formula Drift happens the week before. And then even the week before that, they do the media day, which is when I do the chase car stuff and when I drive. So the course itself is up for months. And it's like a active or it's very close to being completed with just a couple K-rail moves for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And so it's there. The curbing is there all year round.
Yeah,
Forever.
so they should just do like, hey, 2 hours. We're gonna close it up.
That would be so cool.
You know that it would be popular. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I think like, for example, Vegas last year with F1, they had.
yeah.
I was gonna bring that
media
up.
drives.
Wouldn't they close it in the middle of like every morning?
At 5 p.m. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
is when they would shut down the roads, and then the track would be hot at like 8 or 9 or something. I can't remember.
But then the next day it was reopened.
It was open. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a hard stop. They ran into it in the second qualifying when the manhole cover came up. That was the thing. I think they had a hard stop at either 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Oh, wow.
where they had to start converting back over to
I just
be a public
I
road.
absolutely love how big car culture is now. I say it all the time. It's wonderful. You can't avoid it now.
Do you think a lot of that's social media? Is that one of the biggest factors?
Social media, Netflix, F1 being a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, I went to my local kart track recently and they're like, oh, it's so many kids, so many people coming now because of F1. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's so great.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's unstoppable. It's insane.
there seems
and
to
it's
be,
worldwide.
Yeah. I was in Monterey. I was at Pebble Beach, and there's a Monterey touring vehicles. They rent out classic cars, like 1950s Chevys, nothing to do with Formula One. They were saying that they've seen an uptick just because car culture is growing, you know, and it rises, you know, the whole, what's it, the rising
Tide floats all boats.
Yeah, that. But it's that. Like, people are just more interested in cars, period.
Not even that long ago, it was such a big deal for us to get like 10 of the same car together. You know,
shoot.
or the type of car. Not to shoot, but more just like a meet.
Okay.
Like, what did you do before to do car meets?
Yeah.
You know, we planned maybe for weeks or months on forums, like, hey, this is the barbecue, like whatever.
Right,
so
right.
we're gonna have 10 cars. 10 is crazy, double digits. And yeah, it's every single weekend of your life, if you wanted to go to a different car event, you can.
Totally.
It's been exciting to see the growth of interest in motorsport in the United States, particularly because it's always been there in Europe, but here in the US, it's cool to see because of things like Drive to Survive and it being more pervasive. But I just want more, right? Like more people getting into sports car racing, formula racing.
Yeah.
Honestly, you guys are doing your part, and I take it upon myself to tell people this too. Like, we all need to do our part. I'm doing as much as I can to spread the love for this. And this recent step into driving more wheel-to-wheel, drifting, whatever, I'm trying to promote this part now. I'm so lucky in that I've been able to promote photographing cars, telling stories about cars, videoing cars. I had this great moment this weekend. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but the car that I rented from you guys, the E36 M3 with the Riot livery, beautiful car, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Looks incredible. I took it out. I texted my contact at NASA. I was like, hey, can I shoot this car on track when it's cold? He's like, all right, you can have an hour.
I did see the pics.
I brought the car out unknowingly. So a bunch of the local Utah
whole media
photographers
team
just came out.
Yeah.
I didn't ask them to come out.
There was like 10 photographers.
They just wanted to come out just to photograph the same thing, just me with the car. And then, of course, I joined them too. It was like the firing squad. We all had our cameras out. I had my phone. I had my cameras.
Yeah.
And we're just shooting this one car, and all our pictures look the same. But it's just so it was such a pure car culture moment.
That's amazing.
I was like, I couldn't be happier, because being able to inspire these people, the fact that they would want to do this, because it was the same time as the mixer and also the dinner. They were missing dinner for this.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, like, I feel so full. When I see this.
That's so awesome to hear. I will give like major props to the local like photographer crew here. Like going back to what we were talking about like hustle and just showing up and doing the thing. Those guys, the number of times they've come out and shot with us, for us, with us, and it's like they just want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. That really speaks volumes, because the Salt Lake City area, it's not very close to other metropolitan areas, right? It's different in Los Angeles. I mean, it's unlimited.
Yeah.
Right. But here, it's amazing that the culture supports these individuals.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's so incredible, even though it's just essentially like one clump or one area.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, and going back to the car culture thing, we've seen a huge Garrett, the track general manager, we had him on the podcast, and he talked about how back in 2007 when they built the track, because he was one of the original guys here helping run it. He talked about how like you would see one supercar and just be blown away, and it was the only one around, and now like Salt Lake has this massive car culture, massive supercar culture. I mean, now you see whatever going down the road, and you're like, yep, good. Like seen that before. Whereas that would have been just like a, once in a lifetime experience 20 years ago.
Listen, I tell anybody who's into Land Cruisers, they have to come to Salt Lake City and check out the Land Cruiser Museum. It's the best. I've been to a lot of Land Cruiser things, right? It's pretty much one of the most popular vehicles in the world, right? Yeah. It's even very popular with insurgents. But
the worst marketing you could ever want.
It's the worst. But
it's because they always work.
Yeah, exactly. They get you to your place.
Yeah, when you got to get out fast,
anti-aircraft things mounted in the back. So it's so good. I love that collection is here. And the fact that Ken Block was based out of here,
Mhm.
the whole race team was based out of here. I had to come here a lot. And I'm not complaining about that at all. Like, it was great memories and I enjoyed shooting there a lot.
Mhm.
Livery launches. I shot his boat one time out here.
Oh, down at, was it Lake Powell?
No, just like the livery
Oh,
launch. Like,
got it,
hey,
got it.
I got this new boat, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a good area for this kind of culture.
Yeah. It's gotten better for sure. The last 20 years, it's changed a lot. And have you seen any migration with the Los Angeles culture at all? Like, has it changed?
LA, you know, it's amazing to me that a lot of people talk about how bad it is in LA in terms of how restricted we are, but it's nothing compared to across the world, honestly.
Okay.
I've just been to so many places, so many countries where it's just way more restricted. And it doesn't matter though, because car culture finds a way and people will jump through hoops no matter what. Just not so long ago, we did a series in Italy, and you would think that Italian car culture, I mean, come on, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Pagani,
Ducati,
this, that, other, everything.
Yeah.
Sparco, this, that, Momo. It is so restricted, like unbelievably restricted, to the point where I met up with a bunch of local guys, and we went out. They took us out to dinner, and they're like, "Oh, showing us their cars, like, oh, this is my whatever 86 or Supra build or Skyline or whatever." We're in the restaurant, and some cops come into the restaurant too, and they're like, "Oh, we got to stay until they leave.
No kidding.
We cannot go out to our cars if they're out there." Like, they'll bust every one of us. Every one of the. I was like, wait, so why?
What if the car? What if the cars
Every
were
single
Ferrari?
mod ever, all of those cars illegal.
So basically,
Really?
you have to run a car bone stock to be within
Basically,
compliance
yeah.
in Italy.
So can't have Sparco wheels, can't have Sparco seats, can't have any of that stuff.
That seems so contradictory.
It's
to
insane.
Italy.
What
It
if
is
you have a
insane.
Ferrari?
So
Oh,
yeah,
you
that's
probably
the thing,
get
is
strung up if you
have-
modify a Ferrari.
Oh
Because the Ferraris, they know best.
They're perfect.
yeah.
yeah, I guess. I mean, so yeah, it's insane. People don't understand that. Same thing in Germany, TÜV, right? If you don't have TÜV certification on these parts and you get in trouble, you're just so screwed. And that's just, I just hear about LA car. Oh, California. No, it's so free.
Yeah.
It really is. What we're able to get away with carb stuff, right? California Air Resource Board. Like, a lot of the parts that I run, at least superchargers, whatever, are certified.
Okay.
It's extra hoops, right? Like Magnuson, for example, all the superchargers that they sell, all 50 state legal.
Okay.
And we can make power and we can do all this stuff legally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I try to be as responsible as possible. Like, all my street cars run catalytic converters, you know, because I kind of don't like the smell. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. I guess maybe I'm a little grown up in that regard.
Have you ever owned a stock car?
I love tinkering. I love improving. I love modifying or making it worse.
So it's a no.
Which is what usually happens.
My wife's car is stock.
Okay.
That doesn't count, though.
I'll tell you right now, though, I am already planning, once it gets hand me down to me, oh, I'm going ham on this thing.
We were talking about before where there's that sort of car blindness. I would be curious if you incrementally modified her car, if she would just never notice. I mean,
She notices things. I mean,
She'd notice the seats
she
probably,
understands
but
car stuff. So, like, I realized that the Wear she has a GX 460 latest generation, the last V8 from Toyota, right? So I noticed, like, it was wearing unevenly tire wise, so we changed the tires without telling her, and then she noticed.
okay.
So she
there we go.
knows.
Yeah. Did
that
she know what
much.
it was? Or was she just like, something's off?
No. I mean, she recognized that it was new tires.
Oh,
Got
okay.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't snake the tires on.
Yeah.
I did go with more aggressive tires.
Right.
though, so
Of
it's
course.
probably louder.
That's it's your civil duty. Yeah, you have
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
So earlier you were going to tell us a story about your hardest shoot.
Oh yeah. I want to hear this one.
It's something I've talked about a couple times, but it's related to X Games when Rally was a part of X Games. They basically didn't want us content creators there at all. Like they just didn't want us.
What years is this? This is like Colin McRae.
2000. Yeah, I mean,
Like late 90s?
I shot Colin McRae when he flipped at
Was that 90s or 2000s?
it was 2009, I think.
In the college. Oh, is that
Yeah.
recent?
So
Okay.
No, it might have been. Yeah, it was 2009. Coliseum was 2010.
Okay.
2009 was at. It used to be called the Home Depot Center, but anyways, it's where the LA Galaxy plays now.
Mhm.
And yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know why, it was just so tough for us content creators, photographers, videographers to shoot at X Games. They just hated us.
Okay.
They just did not. It's almost like they were just catering to, let's say, like a LA Times photographer to come out, take one picture and run one tiny little column
Yeah.
and call it a day. Realistically, I think that's what it was. They just wanted to check a box, right?
Okay.
It was so ridiculous. Anytime I wanted to shoot X Games, they made us wear armor, like motorcycle armor,
Really?
like
Damn.
motocross armor.
You have pictures of this, I assume, of yourself and
I
That
was
would
so
never see.
happy when they stopped doing motorsport stuff. I was so happy to throw my armor away. I literally went to a motocross place to buy armor just so I could shoot X Games.
Wow.
Do you have to have a helmet on too?
No.
Okay.
So you didn't have to have a helmet, and get this. This is the worst part, okay? I'm shooting in full armor in Texas heat, LA heat, could be 110 degrees out.
Uh-huh.
And I'm standing next to like the excavator that built the jumps or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And kids, like 5-year-old kids, are crawling around the excavator playing, or the people that built the jumps are just chilling out in front of the fence
just
that I
standing
have
there
to
with
be
it.
behind. And they're just like, it's just so, it's downgrading, or it's
Degrading.
like degrading. It's
Yeah.
very degrading
Yeah.
because the X Games employees too, they would come up to me and they're in shorts and t-shirt and they're like, "Hey man, you got to be behind the fence." And they're like in front of the fence. They're like closer to the cars. And they're like, "What if you get hit by a rock?" I'm like, "What if you get hit by a rock?"
You're wearing sandals, buddy.
Yeah, it was the worst, and it was to the point
Oh,
where
man.
a good friend of mine, who still shoots today, he shoots video and I shoot stills.
Yeah.
He almost got arrested at X Games because it was when Tanner Faust and Greg Tracy did the Hot Wheels double loop at X Games in downtown LA. Like his job was to get the double loop, to get a shot of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
And him and we had to hide in certain places to be able to get the shot. Like I hid in a bus stop.
Okay.
I hid behind a trash can. I hid so many places. He hid somewhere and they spotted him and they sent the cops to arrest him.
Not to not be in the shot, but just to get
just to get the shot. So then they sent
Oh my
the
gosh.
the X Games people radioed it in to LAPD. "Hey, get this guy." And LAPD pointed at him and he's like, "Hey, you, like, stop." Like they're going to arrest him.
Yeah.
He ran and he hid in the crowd. Like he blended into the crowd
Wow.
to get away. I did this thing where there was this one shot that I really wanted to get, and Ken Block got third. Okay, he got silver,
Uh-huh.
and he finished on 3 wheels.
Yeah.
That event.
Yes.
And I was like, I need to get the start. I need to get the start shot of them launching. You know, it was like the finals. I need to get the start. So it was this bridge, this like walkway where you could go from one part of the venue to the other, and all the security guards are there. And so I just kept walking across the bridge, and I had my monopod with the camera set up and everything. I just kept walking. I kept walking back and forth. As soon as I got to the end, I would walk back. Because if I was walking, they couldn't stop me because I'm walking.
So no loitering.
No loitering. So then they're like watching me like a hawk, you know? I'm like walking, and then I'm timing it. I hear them go off red line, you know, ready to start. I'm like, oh, I got the timing perfect. So as soon as they launch, I stop walking, stick my camera like through the awning or fence and like all this stuff that they use to block the shot.
Yeah.
Stick it up, start shooting. All the security guards are like rushing me. They're like, hey, you gotta do that, you know? And then I get the launch, I shoot it. I look at the picture. I'm like so proud of it. I'm like so happy. And they all come and they're all going to get me. And I'm like, ha, I got the shot. It don't matter anymore. You know, I got it. You know, so,
and they didn't ask you to delete it. They weren't that savvy.
Who are these?
It's so weird to think,
come on.
Now it would seem insane to be like, no, we don't want freelancers. We don't want social media presence to be at our event. That seems like such a
don't care.
old way of thinking.
It was for TV. Think about it. ESPN is for TV. They're like,
it's their
we're getting
property.
our thing out of it.
Yeah.
We don't care if you're going to come promote it, you know? Two more quick things on this because it's just so ridiculous. I love telling the story. There was one like bicycle fence where they used to block us out from this one shot that we really wanted. So it was me and this other photographer, and there was a security guard there, and basically like they were going to do this one of the heat races, right?
Yeah.
I think that was when Marcus Gronholm also crashed and ended his career at that event. But when this security guard would turn his head, we would pick up the bicycle fence and move it like 6 inches.
Inch it forward.
And we did it over and over and over until we were right next to the security guard.
And he didn't notice.
He didn't notice.
Oh my gosh.
And this was just to get one photograph.
Yeah.
Like this is how crazy it got. You know, like we had an assignment. I was working for Dodge.
Okay.
Dodge cars.
Yeah.
With Travis Pastrana shooting for Kemba.
Oh, the dart.
Yeah, the dart.
Right. Yeah.
So like I shot him doing testing at Willow Springs. And then we shot him at the event, you know, and my goal was to get this good stuff for Dodge.
Yeah.
There's this car company.
Yeah.
You know, I had to get something. One other thing that we did was it's almost like playing a video game in real life. Like there was these certain areas where if we could see the security guard walk, we would basically just go on the other side of like a pole or something and keep
it in between.
Keep the pole or like a telephone pole or something in between. It was like that crazy.
Wow.
Like I would thin myself up to the point where I could just hide. I'm not people think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding.
If this was like the modern era, you'd probably have a bunch of cell phones like filming this happening.
Right, exactly.
I almost wish I could. I'm glad I have the memory of it and I could tell you guys and everybody listening about it. But how funny would it be if I had a video of us doing this dumb?
Yeah.
Can you buy either of those prints now? Are they available? Could I?
Oh, for those?
The story behind those pictures.
I can. Yeah, I still have all of those pictures. Every one of those, including that perfect launch shot that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Like overhead of all of them going under the bridge and Ken on 3 wheels. And I have all that stuff still.
Really?
You know, I have every single picture I've ever taken in my career since I started. And I can access it within 30 seconds.
I would love to see that picture of the launch.
I will.
Knowing that there's
I will show you.
I want to buy a print of it. Just knowing the story behind it.
That'll be one of the prints here in your office.
That would make it so.
awesome.
That's spectacular. Is it harder now? I'm just thinking of when you were shooting the E46, the Ride E46. Is it harder to shoot with the level of celebrity that you have, like, does that get in the way sometimes of you doing your job?
It's really sad to say, but yes. That in particular was not hard. It was fun. It turned into
a bunch
something
of
cool.
other industry people around. Yeah.
But now it's just, I hate talking about this. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't really matter. I don't really care about being popular. I do have to say though, the one-on-one interaction with anyone who watches my stuff or is a fan of what I do, I try my best to spend as much time as possible. I carry stickers with me all the time, as you know, with all your guys. Like I was super happy to hand out stickers and just take pictures with people and just enjoy car culture in that way. But there's just certain things now where it's really hard. I have to wear a disguise almost to be able to do my job.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So events like Formula Drift or Luftgekühlt or SEMA show, Tokyo Auto Salon, like any time where it's like a big crowd, I either have to just like focus on moving fast and not trying to make eye contact and just do my job and shoot. Or I just get stopped a lot, which is fine. It's okay because these people are excited that they're able to meet somebody that they, watch all this content, and it makes me happy, really, honestly. But it's getting to the point where it is actually hurting the photos and hurting the content.
It seems like it'd be an incredibly difficult thing to balance.
That's also why now my favorite thing to shoot is like true car culture things. Like checking out secret underground meetings or checking out like when these certain kind of people meet together to go cruising, or somebody's random garage that they're building these incredible race cars or rat rods or whatever. Like I really like shooting that because it's like uninterrupted. I can just focus on making pictures and telling stories.
And you've been to SEMA pretty much every year for how many years?
I started in 2006 and I haven't missed one. And of course we all missed, the shutdown year, but it's to me, it's like the greatest car show in the world. And it is the reunion for modified car culture every single year.
When Cole was on here, he showed us the picture that you took of his Miata limo.
Yes.
I have a little bit of a crush on Miatas in general. So when he was telling that story, I'm like, no way.
Footlong. That's what we call it.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, footlong. My buddy he didn't build it. My buddy was a Formula Drift driver, Danny George. He bought it, but he like made it what it was. Putting in the seats, swapping the turbo motor. And we took it out on the strip, drifted around Las Vegas. It's such a funny feeling, especially when you're sitting in the back. And when that thing gets sideways, it's hilarious.
I didn't even think about that. Just the wheelbase. You must be swinging for so long.
Funny. It just, there's no other feeling like it. It's hilarious. I love that vehicle so much. I did a full feature on that.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I did a full feature of it under the Vegas lights. It's just like this most beautiful red Miata, but it's a foot-long limo style Miata, with 4 seats. It's hilarious.
Is the weirder the better for you when it comes to car mods? Like as far as shooting or being interested?
You'll see me, especially at car shows and car events, gravitate towards the better story and more interesting vehicle versus more expensive, right? Money, as you guys know, just doesn't mean that it's the most interesting vehicle. It could be the $500 build. It could be barn find, or it could be whatever, it could be the home built thing that is ingenious. Because it's unlimited. It's a lot of people see me out and about and working, or people will show me collections or whatever. And they always tell me, how are you still surprised? Well, it's because there's just that many out there. There's that many surprises, that many things that keep us all going.
Yeah.
The day I get bored is the day I'll just quit.
Mhm.
But I'm never going to get bored because of what's possible.
Yeah.
It is a part of us, whether we like it or not.
Mhm.
It's transportation, as I mentioned before we started rolling, in its most basic form.
Mhm.
It is moving from one place to the other, but it's just something that is mechanical. It's inanimate, but has a soul, and it's beautiful, and it's incredible.
Well,
Absolutely.
You've been super gracious with your time, man. We really appreciate this.
I'm so glad to be here. You guys have been incredible. Being able to drive with you guys, it's very inspiring to see what you guys are doing. So hopefully we can do more stuff together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, if you guys want to just watch the stuff that I do, Hagerty YouTube channel, Larry Chen YouTube channel, you can follow me on Instagram, which is pretty much like my most updated what I'm doing at the moment. All the stuff that I always talk about, everything that I'm shooting, I always show first on Instagram because I just want to get it out there.
Yeah.
And even if I'm doing a full episode on it, I'm not ruining the surprise or anything. I'm just telling the story a different way. It's like very short form. And it's just so great to bring all these people along with me because I would have loved to have something like that growing up, being into car culture. We would have to illegally download everything, right? Top Gear, and, Best Motoring, and all the good content because there was no other way to get it. It's like we were just clawing for all the content that existed in the world. Like at one point we could consume it all.
It's a great point.
But now it's not that way. It's whatever you're into. It makes me happy that there's that many car nerds out there that can understand this stuff that we're talking about.
And you excited for tomorrow?
Yeah, really excited. I just love driving.
Yeah.